The opt-out movement, it is gaining steam in New York. As many as 140,000 school kids have skipped standardized tests this week. Their parents keeping them home, but it is the schools that could get punished. The state considering financial sanctions against schools that had a lot of kids who stayed home. So the question is, could the wrong folks here get punished? Dominic, again, there's all the reasons, many of them legitimate, I'm sure, where a parent feels that there's too much stress on the kids, too much teaching to the test instead of other things. But if they made the decision, which is a constitutional right, to keep the kid home from school here, there's consequences. The schools and the teachers, they're impacted, and the grades will impact their performance reviews, etc. And they're saying, okay, somebody's got to pay a price here. Schools, you're going to be sanctioned potentially. Is that the right person to get punished? The school is an entity. I mean, there's no way to really punish the parents, so should the schools pay a price?
I don't think so. I think if 10 or 13% of school kids decide to opt out, and their parents, of course, and not take this exam, I think that's good government, because you have an option of what you want your child to do. I believe the state is saying that they're indirectly blaming the schools for having an organized effort at keeping these kids away. That's the only reason why I could think that you would really punish the school.
Certainly the UFT was involved in this, and it wasn't tacitly. They were overtly doing robocalls here where they were letting people know it's your right here and we encourage you to do so. I found this whole thing so irresponsible in that the real world is kids are going to have to take tests. Kids are going to have to take the Regents. Kids are going to have to go through this. Sure they are. You want to go to college, you got to take the SATs.
No, you don't. The colleges have stopped
you don't have to take the Regents. You don't have to take
the Regents. You don't have to take the SATs anymore.
And you don't, for some programs, you don't have to take the SATs.
The vast majority require SATs. Okay, or you have to take the GREs. There's tests that you have to take.
The vast majority.
My point is, whether it's fair or not, why did these things come out of place? They came out of place because we were having social promotion at schools. They needed some measurement standards. Perfect? No. But if a constituent comes up to you and says, hey, you know what, I'm thinking of keeping my kid at home, what would you tell them?
First was, I think you're overstating the whole, you're simplifying and overstating the problem.
Hey, it's TV.
Yeah, no, it isn't that. I agree with Richard. It's not that everyone has to take a test. The question is, how many tests? Does a kid have to take so many tests that half the year is filled with preparing for tests? No one opposes
tests. But this is the biggie.
No, but let me finish. One, to say the parent keeps their kid home is not correct. In many of these cases, the kid went to school and sat there for the 2 hours of the test, and in some cases was not allowed to do anything else, had to sit in a chair and behave.
With all due respect, I think that's a distinction without a difference. In the end, they chose to not participate in the test.
I understand. But the second point is this. There is not clear law that anyone has the right to penalize the district or anyone else. This is a threat by SED to try to push districts to discourage opting out. But right now the law is very unclear, and the federal law is very unclear.
Fair enough, I got you. If a constituent came to you and said, you know what, I don't really like how this whole thing went down. I don't want my kid to take the test. I want him to opt out. Would you discourage it, encourage it?
Well, I hate to come out complicated further, because I only represent Yonkers, and every potential dollar lost is an issue.
Very good.
In Yonkers,
answer the question.
No, in Yonkers, there's a strong discouragement of opting out because of the potential that money could be lost, which we cannot afford.
The money that's being lost, is first of all, is federal Title I money.
Federal Title I.
And that's because the feds have made this sort of testing measurement a requirement. This extra added SED idiocy is SED idiocy, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I don't think they have the legal right to withhold appropriated funds because somebody thinks the testing programs aren't being addressed. May I answer your question?
Please.
I would say knock yourself out. If that's what you think is best for your kid, do it.
What's the message to the kid then? When things get tough, you know what? Don't do the test?
This has nothing to do with being tough.
No, not being tough. Stop the Rambo routine. I mean, when things are difficult, when things become difficult and the challenge becomes...
When things become stupid, don't do them.
So wait, you're deciding now, and now we're going to empower parents and students to decide which tests they find stupid and not?
As opposed to having Richard French make that decision for my kids.
Not me.
Yeah.
This test was designed and implemented. I had nothing to do, obviously I'm trying to make a point here, with the creation of the test. I have nothing to do with the creation of the SATs. I have nothing to do with the creation of any standardized test.
Trust Albany?
But there are tests.
Did I do the last segment with you? Was that you? I was
I don't
doing the
have to
lesson, Ruth?
like it. But
Well,
you know what? At the end of the day, you can't have everyone deciding which test they choose to take and not.
Yes, you can. And if the parents think this is bad for their kids, this is America. They have the right to do it. I personally have a great deal of sympathy for the notion that these tests are not related to anything real about educating children.
Well, you know what?
And there are
That's a
plenty of-
terrific time to have a debate about it. But you know what? Change the test for next year. But while this is the only test here, and I'm stealing your line from yesterday, Andrew, if this is the only option, imperfect though it may be, this is our only option.
It's not the only option. They are taking other tests. There are lots of other
But
standardized
how are you going to
tests.
have a measurement tool if you have different people going by different...
If the measurement tool stinks, you don't want a measurement tool.
Says you, though.
Well, and you know what? This is also America, and I'm entitled to my opinion. I mean, I may be a guest here, but the last time I checked, I didn't have to follow the Richard French line on standardized testing.
in the C block will commence.
I was hoping to opt out of this conversation. Again, I've said the same point as long as we've been talking about it. You mentioned that they're teaching to the test, which I find objectionable, and I want to see it change. But they've already done that. The teaching to the test has already been done. Skipping the test isn't going to undo the teaching to the test that's already been done.
Can I just tell you one thing? This is also an effective political tool to keep this issue alive. And let's not take that off the table. This is a very contentious issue.
So maybe we should keep the politics out of the classroom.
No, but honestly, you have parents upset, you have teachers upset, you have kids upset. This is a tool that's going to keep this conversation going. And to that extent, I support the idea that we're going to continue to argue about it because it is not over. I agree with Richard. There were mistakes made. We need to fix them. This keeps the conversation on the table.
What would you do if your kid asked you whether they should take the test?
If my kid was one of my kids that threw up before every test, I'd probably say no. If my other kid who had total confidence and could do anything, I would say no, you have to. To your point, as a parent, you make a judgment about your children. There's not a hard and fast rule. And in this case, with a test that has no consequences for the child itself, I think you make a child-specific finding unless there are economic issues, which there are in my district.
What she said.
I swear, I'm going to find out if there's IFBs because they hear, like right when I'm getting wrapped, they always get the last word
what
in.
She said.
I think you're completely wrong, both of you. All right, when we come back here, we will have more, including, I want to just remember what today is. Our video of the day, it is coming out of Israel. People today came to a standstill for Holocaust Memorial Day. People leave their cars as siren wails to commemorate the 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis. Parliament also reads out the names of the victims later in the day. It's an issue I know that Mr. Brodsky has worked to make sure no one ever forgets, especially with what's going on in the world today. We'll be right back.
30 years.